Hello, and welcome to Your Sparkly Brand. We're here to inspire and empower entrepreneurs just like you. This podcast is all about delivering no fluff, high value content that helps you to grow your business. Doesn't matter if you have no budget and you're still DIYing everything on your own, we're giving you the tips, tools, and strategies you need to build a sparkly empire. I'm Megan Gersh, your branding and website designer, and I'm here with my co-host, the copywriter extraordinaire, Lauren Tessie. Hey, Lauren, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
How was your week? What's your sparkly moment?
So I think I mentioned this last week, but I've been doing these daily TikTok lives and it's brought a lot of new eyes to my business, which has been interesting. But the other day I was on live and I was helping this person and they wound up coming to me as a website prospect. So essentially gave her some tips and we're going to have a call next week to see if it's possible to redesign her website. So that's pretty exciting.
I love that. That's the perfect example of you don't have to gatekeep your knowledge and your services. Just put it out there and the right people will find you.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you?
So mine also relates back to last week. I feel like it was good for us to be like, hey, what are our goals? What are we working on? One of my goals was to hire a project manager and I now have 2 project managers.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah. One of my writers reached out to me and said she's looking for more work. And I was like, yeah, I could definitely if you want to take on some other tasks. So she's going to help. And then one of our mutual friends is looking for some work. And I'm like, you know what? We come from the same background. I would love, our brains work the same. Let's do it. So I have 2 project managers now.
That's awesome. Well, everything should be super organized.
That's the idea. I'll update you on that soon.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
And so let's get into our topic for today. And we are getting a little sassy today. This is kind of something I feel like we hint about it. We talk about it a little bit, but today we're talking about bro marketing, what it is, how to spot it, how to avoid it, and what to do instead. I don't know if there's other people that use this term. I don't know that it's all that Googleable of a term, but it's really a specific type of unethical sales and marketing techniques. So this is just our take on it. You can take it or leave it. It's also it's not limited to men. I don't want this to be a gender thing. This is literally just kind of a way to identify marketing or sales methods that don't agree with you. So plenty of people of all genders use bro marketing. It's not about that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so bro marketing is basically marketing that is highly manipulative. So it takes our natural insecurities as humans and basically uses those things against us. So it uses kind of slimy, kind of tricky sales tactics and psychological triggers that essentially drive people to action. And a lot of it does come from a place of fear and a place of lack. And so, yeah, we'll get into a little bit about why this is not the best practice in your business and why we both kind of don't believe in this stuff. So
yeah. And I think it's also as a consumer, sometimes it can feel like bro marketing when really it's just a completely unaligned offer or not the right audience. So it's very it's a subjective thing, but I think it's one of those things that once you hear our take on it, you're gonna be oh yeah, that's that. I can spot it there. I can spot it there and really be able to not just, I don't want to say protect yourself, but just be aware, right? It's all about awareness and knowing what's happening and not being manipulated to make decisions. So let's kick it off. So one of the first things that you can use to spot bro marketing is faux empathy, right? So this is anybody who uses that sort of I was once where you are, or, I started out just like you. I was making $10 a day doing nothing. And they sort of have this story, but there's not there's holes in it, or you just know it's straight up not true. And it helps them build trust and that know, and trust factor that we talk about, but it's just it's not rooted in fact. It's kind of used to manipulate you to make a decision. So the alternative to that is to share your real story, to be vulnerable and helpful, but don't over exaggerate your story to connect with people more or make it seem things were worse off.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add on that too, one way to, share your story and to share kind of that validity in your story is to show examples from your past. If you have screenshots or you have photos or, before and after type thing, those can be so powerful when you show people that hey, I actually was here, here was my, whatever you're trying to show, before and after. But yeah, being so truthful is so important in, ethical marketing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we want to talk about is false scarcity. So this is when you say basically there is only 2 days left to join this program, when in reality, you will continue to take people after that. Maybe you open the cart and then you close the cart. But if you're saying you're going to close the cart cart and you don't actually close the cart, that's false scarcity. So you really want to make sure that you are basically being legit with your offers. And, when you say you're going to close the cart or you say you're going to close the door on a program, like actually don't let anyone else in until the next launch.
Yeah, I think it also like there's just something inside of you, especially if you're like launching or showing up in a way in your marketing, right? Like if you're going live and you're talking about, well, are the doors closed tomorrow? And in your head, that's not true. It's like something's gonna be disconnected. People aren't gonna buy it. It's gonna seem slimy. So like actually setting those boundaries or those rules or whatever they are for your business and sticking to them means you can go out there and sell your program and be like, yes, the doors are closing tomorrow. And there's an actual reason to inspire people to buy.
Yeah. And like one thing with that too, like, especially if your program has some kind of like live element, obviously you don't want to be like taking people in like mid program or like that looks kind of weird and kind of sketchy. So, always thinking about like, what are the elements of your program? Do they need a timeline attached to them? And like really sticking to that.
Yeah. I think the same thing can go for like products too. Like sometimes you'll be like, oh, it's going to sell out soon. Like hopefully it will. Or do you have a garage full of this stuff and you're just like desperate? Like then do a 2-for-1 sale, do a limited time sale. Like there's ways to move product without sort of saying things that are just not true. Because again, there's going to be a disconnect in how you're showing up. So another bro marketing tactic is to make people feel bad. And I hate this one. It's just, you read it and it's like exactly what makes people hate copywriters, hate marketers in general. And that's like anything that like makes you feel like you're not good enough. It's like body shaming, all the weight loss stuff, diet culture, like the list goes on and on. So instead of like making people feel bad, use your words, use your messaging to motivate and inspire instead of focusing on the negative.
Yeah, that one is so common amongst marketers. And I think it's interesting to kind of like walk that fine line between like, there's obviously, we talk about like pain points in marketing and stuff like that, but there's a difference between like talking about pain points and like really like abusing that to like make somebody feel bad.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the pain point thing, because a lot of times, like if it's a pain point and you're sort of pushing on it, but then not like offering a real solution or not being at like I'm big on like empathy there, where it's like, this sucks right now, but you know what? So many people go through this and we've helped people do this and just sort of like that, instead of like, you're all alone, you're, suffering or whatever your problem is, using that empathy in there can really help take away from the manipulative side of it.
Yeah. And so the next thing that we want to talk about is any kind of like get rich quick type promises. So like if you see somebody that says like make $100,000 in the next 30 days or in the next 24 hours, like if it seems too good to be true, it's probably not real. So the alternative to this would be to set realistic goals. So like, talk about like how you can make 6 figures in the next year or so. Going back to the weight loss thing, like maybe you can lose weight over time, over a set longer period of time so that it's more sustainable. But just think about like, if you see one of those things, like, and it seems too good to be true, like it most likely is a scam.
Yeah. And another one is like any sort of high pressure tactic that just kind of, sales is a lot about tension, right? And so sometimes we, salespeople will put on something to just kind of make you squirm a little bit. And that's not always a bad thing, but if it's really like coming from a bad place or really sort of like upsetting you emotionally, take a step back, take a moment and like figure out what's going on in your mind. And that's, some of these things are like, they tell you to like get the credit card right away. Like don't get off the phone until you get a credit card. This is sort of like really those like used car salesman tactics that we hear about. They'll make you feel like if you don't do this right now, you're gonna lose out on everything, right? Your life is gonna get terrible if you don't, buy this thing or join this thing. What I like to do, especially like on a sales page or where we're trying to get somebody to make a decision, is to put the power in the buyer's hands, right? If you feel called to join us, right now you can change your life. Join us today or whatever. Just something to like motivate and inspire versus manipulate. I think that's kind of like the common theme here.
Yeah, I had a coach once that essentially was encouraging our group to like get on sales calls and like take the person's credit card number ourselves, like over the phone. And I was like thinking to myself like the entire time, like, I don't want that responsibility. Like what happens if something happens to that person's credit card information and I'm like held liable? Like, I just don't want that responsibility. So definitely stay away from that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about is any kind of sexist undertones. So, most of the time, this is not like super in your face, but there's just something about it that like makes you feel like kind of icky and gross. So, like, if you can avoid any kind of those undertones, like, just avoid it at all costs. Do your research, like, know your target audience, like, know their triggers and stuff like that. And, just be conscious to that, like, when you are putting together your messaging.
Yeah, I think this goes on to our next point too. And that's like really cringy metaphors. I'm doing a lot of sales training right now, and this is where a lot of this episode came from. But like somebody the other day was like talking about like closing as in like when you're, trying to sleep with somebody. And I was just like, oh my God, this is killing me right now. So like anytime it's like this, that one is both, right? That's sexist and it's a terrible metaphor. I also see like violent metaphors a lot. This is war, take no prisoners, or like rap music metaphors. Again, like if it's your audience, that's fine, that's appropriate. The example I'm thinking of here was not necessarily appropriate, or like there was a million other places you could have found some metaphors. So just like think twice about those kind of things. If you default towards like war metaphors, it might not be the best thing depending on your audience. So use those sparingly. Also, sometimes I will use them for humor, right? Like if I'm talking about fake lashes or something, these are your take no prisoners lashes, but that's obviously like a joke and everybody's in on it. So just sort of think about, your words have power. And if somebody might be like, this is kind of uncomfortable, think twice about using it. All right. Well, that's our take on bro marketing. We hope you are feeling inspired to turn towards the light and avoid all these tactics that we just talked about. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, stay sparkly.